Hello, Heather Broadbent here, violinist and instructor at Online Violin Education, where I train violinists all over the world how to improve their technical skill sets for more melodic playing. Welcome back! I'm really excited that you're here at video 2 for our OVE theme song. Woohoo! So this means that you have watched video 1, you've applied all the techniques that we talked about, you really spent some time, you can now officially play measure 1 through 16 with no problem. Okay, excellent. Now, when we come to measure 17, we're starting into some double stops, and this gets a little tricky because we have double stops and we also have shifting going on. So if these are some techniques that you feel a little insecure about, I would highly suggest that you check out my Divine Double Stop course or my Position Mastery Intensive Accelerated Program for Positions. Or if you know specifically, okay, you have an issue with third position, you can just go into like the little course that I have specifically for third position. But this training video is specifically to walk you through the theme song, and I'll briefly touch on the techniques that are needed to play in it, but if you need more information, definitely check out the courses, okay, the specific courses for those techniques. So studying pieces is actually really good to know and find out where your weaknesses are in techniques so you can work on those specific techniques. If you find that you come to a piece, you're working in a piece and you don't quite know the technique in that piece, you don't want to just kind of sit there and not know that technique. Really see it as an opportunity to study and really get into that technique, okay? So we're just going to briefly talk about the how to play double stops, but mostly we're talking about the piece here, okay? So I'm just going to give you one tip straight out about double stops. When you play 2 strings at once, which double stops are 2 strings at once, do not push, just balance. That's all it is, it's balance, okay? So keep that in mind because a lot of violinists, when they first come into double stops, they just push very forcefully, thinking, oh, that's how I play double stops. But that's not. It's really about balance, okay? And just always know what 2 strings you're playing at the same time. Now, what's really cool here in measure 17, 18, and 19, actually 19, 20, 21, we don't, until 22, we don't play 2 fingers or 1 finger on each string. We only play 1 finger with an open string. So it's really nice kind of segue into the double stop journey by playing, but it's basically playing what would be called a drone or an open string with 1 finger. So it's the easy version of double stops. Okay, so here's 17. Now, what's pretty awesome about this is you can find out if your left hand is set up correctly because you're fingering on the D string and your open A should be ringing. So if your fingers are not sitting on 1 string, perhaps they're sitting on 2, or perhaps you're not clearing the A string, this part is going to sound really ugly. Don't be discouraged, just know it's saying, hey, you know what, you need to fix your left hand, okay? So here's measure 17, actually this is measure 17 and 18, so it's just like the beginning, it's just like measures 1 and 2, but all we did is add an open A. And then here we're adding an open D. Okay, so exactly the same measures in the first 4 measures as to these measures here. Exactly the same, we're just adding open strings, okay? So it should be fairly easy for you. It's just a matter of getting those double stops sounding. And by balancing, not by pushing. Okay, now measure 21 is just like measure 5. And 22 is like measure 6, but now we have double stops. Now in 22, this is our first time where you're gonna have to play 1 finger on each string, okay? So we have the G and B. This is called a third. It's an interval of a third. And if you need more help on learning intervals or knowing what intervals are, definitely check out my music literacy, How to Read Music and More. We go all about intervals in there, okay? It's really good to know what interval you're playing so it helps you with the intonation if you're playing it in tune or not. Now, the next interval that we're playing here is a G and a C. And that's a perfect 4th, and that's an incredible interval because it sounds like the doors open up and you're just on your way to heaven. It really truly sounds like heaven to me. That's a heaven interval. It sounds like if after a storm you have black and white, the black clouds, and then after the black clouds is this beautiful ray of sun. That's a perfect 4th. Okay, it's also the wedding march. All right, but again, if you need more instruction on intervals, definitely check out the Music Literacy, How to Read Music and More course. Okay, so the end of 22, we have a 3rd finger on the D string and a 4th finger on the A string. Now, did you see? You may have noticed I just naturally have kept my fingers down. When you play double stops and when you play in general, you do want to keep your fingers down so you can feel the relationships from one finger to another. I have a really funny story actually about that. Well, it wasn't funny at the time, but at the university, I studied at University of Colorado at Boulder with Ozzie Leonard. He was the violin professor at the time, and I was playing in the master class. We had master classes every Thursday. And, you know, this was years ago when I was at the university. So what happened was I prepared, I believe it was a Bach sonata. Honestly, I don't remember what piece it was, but I was ready to play that that day, and Ozzie gave me a really hard time because I wasn't holding my fingers down. And he actually told me I couldn't play until I was in the master class until I held my fingers down, which was actually a really good lesson to learn and to be told, you know, you can't play until you get those fingers held down. And it really stuck with me. Obviously, it's still stuck in my head. So remember to hold the fingers down. It's really important because that way your fingers know the relationship of the previous finger. Otherwise, it's just like you are completely just trying to grab pitches out of thin air, which is more difficult. So it's really good, like here in 22, hold those fingers down. And then also, in this case, we do need to hold that 3 down because the next double stop has that 3 in it, okay? So we have, okay, and then F sharp. Now when you go to this F sharp, the next note, you feel that 2 come up behind the 3, and then your 3 comes on to the other string for the F sharp D. And then the 8th note's pretty easy, E, C, but you're gonna have to cross over the 1 to grab the B in the open D. Okay? I know I'm going over this really pretty quick, but you can always pause the video or stop the video and study what I'm specifically talking about. All right, and then 24, we're back to the 3rd, G and B, the 3 and the 1. And another beautiful perfect 4th with the E and the A, okay? So I'll play that for you so you can hear from 17 to this point, because this point is 24. I want you to hear this before we go into the double stops with the shifting, because that can be a little bit of a challenge. All right, so let's put this together first. So here's from measure 17. Brings us to our next portion of the double stops. I would really work that out, get that really nice and singing and gorgeous, and then you can move on to the next portion. Okay, so here, starting at measure 25 is where we actually shift. We're shifting from an F sharp D to 3rd position, A and F sharp. Now this F sharp D, your fingers touch. The A and the F sharp, the fingers do not touch. Touch, do not touch. Half step across the strings, even though it's not a half step, but it feels like a half step because our fingers are across the string and they're touching. And then we move up and it's a whole step, what I call a whole step across the strings, where your fingers do not touch, okay? All right, so we have F sharp D, and we're shifting in a 3rd. Now, if shifting is a new thing for you, or even 3rd position is a new thing for you, then I would hold off on this section of this theme song until you learn those techniques, okay? So it's really good to study 3rd position before you do something like this, because I always say you need to know the lay of the land before you get there, right? Before you take any trip anywhere, say you're going to Mexico, you don't know what money you need, you don't know what the weather's gonna be like. Well, let's say everybody knows what the weather's gonna be like in Mexico. Okay, let's take a country, and you know, specifically any country. It could be any country. It could be, let's go to Serbia, okay? I was just in Serbia last weekend. It was absolutely beautiful. And you know, I honestly went without looking to see what money I needed, but actually it worked out fine. But anyway, you need to know what money you need, what the weather's like, so you know what to pack, all that fun stuff. Well, that's the same with positions. You need to know what the position is like in the home and where it is on the violin, or else how the heck are you going to know how to shift there? So if you don't know 3rd position, hold off, learn 3rd position, and then come back to this, okay? So if you do know 3rd position, what you want to do is just practice this shift. And I would actually practice going from F sharp to A, and then D to F sharp, and then the 2 together. Okay, now there's tons more ways to practice double stops, and I share that all in the course Divine Double Stops, so you can check that out, okay? So here we go, continuing on, 25. All right, then you have those 8th notes at the end. Okay, so here we are, 25. You have the 8th notes at the end, and you can just practice that over and over and over. Okay, so just practice that so you really feel how that works, because 2 and 1 have a space or whole step across, 3 and 4 touch on the top. Okay, back to F sharp. Still in third. Now, when that's super in tune, that A and F sharp, you can hear the overtone series of third pitch. What's called the third pitch is what I call the supernatural in music, and you can hear like this other pitch ringing when it's super in tune. All right, and then the next measure is just like 2 measures before, so it's measure 25 and 27 are the same. Okay, and then measure 28 is the same as 26, just with same rhythm but different notes. Okay, then 29 is our fun rhythm that you really explored in 6 and 7, but now we're doing it with double stops. Okay, so okay, so I just wanted to play through so you can hear it. Now this is kind of tricky because we are, yes, shifting up in measure 30 to 5th position. All right, so I would suggest if you need to know the 5th position before you do this, because this is kind of tricky doing these double stops and shifting in different positions. 1, it's tricky to play double stops in a new position. 2, you have to shift from a position to a position, so it can be kind of tricky. So I'm just going to walk you through in these techniques. If you feel like you need more education on them, there's courses to help you out with that, okay? But so basically 30, you're in 3rd position, and then you're shifting into 5th position, back into 3rd. Okay? And that concludes this section. So there's a lot to work on here, but that walks you through the double stop section. So enjoy, and I'll see you in the next video.